Meet Kashif. He isn't just an everyday car enthusiast. He's one of those mad scientists kind of a motoring enthusiast. For instance, in his garage, a Volkswagen Polo, like you see on screen, underwent a Frankensteinish transformation, rocketing from a modest 105 bhp to a monstrous 220 plus horsepower on high octane fuel. Forget buying fast cars. Kashif's mantra is making them insane. Imagine a world where tuning is less science, more wizardry, and every throttle press unleashes a symphony of speed. That's Kashif's world, a place where too much power is just the starting line.
So let's talk about your journey first. Where did your journey with cars start? When did it start? How did it start?
I think it started early on. Like my dad was always into cars. While growing up, I always
Yeah.
saw, uh, again, this basic things and being driven around Delhi. A lot of, I think, they're older cars now,
Huh.
but it used to be always eye-catchy.
Hmm.
So from childhood, I was always into it. More into bikes, although I was more intrigued by it.
Okay.
But again, I never got to own a bike.
Hmm.
But again, it started very early on. Luckily, I had a car before I got my driving license.
Okay.
But I was always intrigued in terms of how they look. And once I started driving, the experience and the rush I got while
I'm
driving them.
still trying to add up how your dad gave you a car before you had a license.
I always had a car parked at home, so I just took it out at nights or something like that. So slowly, steadily, I learned.
Huh.
Didn't go like full on driving, but yeah, I had access to it while I was like 15 or 16, something like
Okay.
that. And just going around a circle in the colony or something like that, that used to be fun enough.
And what was the first machine that you actually?
I think I started learning driving on the Maruti 800
Okay.
and graduated. Maybe the first car I owned was a 1.5 Honda City
Okay.
back in 2002 when the facelift came, the
Okay.
Gen 2.
Right.
That was the first car I owned. Loved that car. Again, that is the longest car I kept because I never wanted to sell it.
Okay.
So that car was with me for about 8 odd years.
Okay.
And then again, in between, I had a second car also, which was the Palio. It was an orange colored, I think, what, a 1.6 GTX.
Okay.
So it used to be a nightmare in terms of running that car because the fuel economy was like horrible.
But that car has its own cult today. I mean,
I'm saying I've never driven a better hatch, or better driven, like a better built car till date. The
Okay.
only hindsight was that again the fuel economy was like 5-6
okay.
like kilometers per liter.
Okay.
Back in the day, because while we were growing up and everything, it was a nightmare to run. But again, a fancy thing which I remember about that specific car used to be that we used to flaunt because the ECU was actually had a Ferrari badging on it.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Okay.
again, that was
So
something
you
which used
assumed
to.
like you're driving a Ferrari.
No, that was never an assumption, but it was
Okay.
a cool thing that at least you don't have a Ferrari, but you have a part which was made by Ferrari or designed by Ferrari.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Then slowly, steadily throughout the years, graduated to again the initial thought in terms of owning a car was like how an enthusiast for me starts is like first the visual appearance of the car. Like for example, I always see what I believe is like a car is an extension of someone's personality.
Perfect.
For me, it was always starting with the basic wheels, slowly, steadily got into audio, and then later on graduated in terms of performance. That
Okay.
was the last part of it.
Okay. Okay.
Owned a lot of cars throughout the years. I'm saying I had both the Zen Carbons and steel, Cruise. I had like one of your friends only when SOS was started as a group. So I bought the City Ricky used to have.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so that was a cool car. I bought it just for the appearance, but slowly, steadily, it had a lot of things. But again, I made it my own. Then, in terms of performance, I think I started when I met Arush. I had a 1.8 Octavia,
I see.
which again, slowly, steadily, we had maxed out that car. Again, there was a restriction in terms of how much horsepower we could push out of it because of the gearbox which is there, which is the DQ200. Again, not the most reliable one. So that was the car which actually like drove me full on in the performance.
So I'm sure when you had the Octavia 1.8, because looking at the kind of cult it has today, what was it that normally I've seen people starting with stage 1 and then doing some air intake mods and stuff. So what was it that made you go crazy? What did you see that made you go crazy with
See,
it?
ideally, I'm saying कि we were used to driving quicker cars, but again, like throughout the years, I had an E-Class also. Then a Cruise also. Cruise was the first car which I experimented on. Again, like something DIY. Back in the day, Dieseltronic came out, the dual channel one. Got it to myself. Again, didn't have a lot of knowledge back then. So we assumed that the air filter will make it get more power.
Okay.
But again, slowly, steadily, as we progressed, and luckily, I had access to a community of people which were able to help.
I see.
Which were able to guide me, tell me the right things to do. That was a key factor. With the 1.8, we started off very basic, like with the stage 1. But then again, it felt better. Then assumed, for me, it was always that, okay, the car is going faster, but again, it should handle in a certain way, or corner in a certain way, or at least like brake in a certain way. So again, it was a complete package for me always. Like it's not only horsepower, but ideally how it puts out that horsepower on the road as well.
And I think the importance of having a handling upgrade, that's the brakes and suspension, you realize only once you have more power. Is that so?
Correct. It is absolutely that. Again, what I've seen and what I've experienced also is ideally first everyone's end goal is what is your 0 to 100 and what is the figures you're putting out.
Yeah.
But again, luckily we saw a lot of builds on Team BHP and again a lot of car meets in Delhi. It made me realize that okay, you can go quicker by doing basic stuff as well.
Right.
Like initially I started with a remap, but by the time we were done with that 1.8 TSI, we practically put everything barring a bigger turbo on that. I understood the importance of an intercooler, again access to internet, but moreover the local community.
Okay.
Like a lot of builds were happening at Autopsych, from Prithvi's Laura to Jay to Harman. A lot of people were building it and we shared knowledge. We understood as well. Like it's important to build a fast car,
right?
But it is equally important not to break it or run it properly.
And to be able to stop it.
And to be able to stop it, obviously.
Okay. So, I mean, I have observed one thing looking at this car as well as your other cars, which unfortunately we don't have here today, that there is a very solid inclination of, you have a very solid inclination towards making a stock car go faster than it actually can, as against buying a ready car which can go fast. Why, what made you make that decision?
That's always been the thing with me. Like, for example, I want to extract something which is, again, the maximum out of that vehicle or out of that platform. Because, see, I have a thing for sleepers.
Right.
Again, the car should look stock. But again, when I'm driving the car, it should be as per my standards or as per my liking.
Right.
For example, this car which is standing here was never intended to be a performance car. It was solely intended, bought because one of my friends bought it. He made me drive that car from the day he got it from the showroom to when he did stage 1, when he did stage 3. Again, he's driving that car right now in INRC, and one of the quicker cars there. So I drove it through every leg of its build, and I sort of slightly got inclined towards it. Like, for example, for a couple of years, I always had a daily which was at least 350 or 400 horsepower. So I necessarily did not understand why I would have a likeness for cars which I've actually grown out of. Well, for me, it was just about going quick. But again, once I drove that car throughout the stages, I felt that connection in terms of like the road feel and what a hatchback can also do. So that was, but the intent was also that, okay, whenever I have a specific car, it is for a specific purpose. Like, for example, if I go on cruises on the highway, there'll be a different car. If I want to hit the track or maybe go quick, there'll be a different car. This was for an itch which had stopped early on, some about 15 odd years ago. Like, I didn't have a decent audio in the car. So, barring my friend, which is Phil basically, I said, he told me that you should buy this car. This is a nice platform. if nothing else, just swoon around the city. You'll never get this gen of. So till about a year, he tried convincing me. I was still not game. I was like, what am I going to do with a 3-cylinder car? It's not fun. It's not going to be quick. But like the more I drove his car, the more I liked it. Then again, the intent was that I hadn't done audio for about 15 odd years. Might as well have one car which will have a nice audio setup.
Right.
Because rest of the cars are built in a specific way. Either they'll have nice factory audio or their performance build. So I didn't understand the purpose of mixing an audio with a performance build.
But you're currently doing that.
This happened coincidentally. Like initially, the thought was just to have the car. I made Phil also promised me. He in fact texted me that he will not ask me to do any mods because I didn't want to mod this car at all. The intent was to have this car, put a nice set of wheels, which I do in every possible car which is there, and then have a nice audio setup. But again, once the audio was done, he'd build around 6 stage 3 cars back then. I felt that the 100 horsepower, 108 horsepower is good enough. But once I drove those cars more and more, I felt this again needs that because that fun wasn't there. In fact, the first thing I did on the car before the wheels also, I was driving it back from the showroom from Noida to D&D. The first bump I hit, and on stock wheels, the suspension was horrible. So I called him myself before getting home. I said, I need something in terms of making this more comfortable. Not to the performance extent, but I need coilovers, something which will be very comfortable. So that was the first mod ordered for the car, although it wasn't meant to be that way. Because the stock car wasn't like comfortable or fun at all.
So firstly, I think you need more friends like Phil.
Yeah.
And see, I mean, one thing is for sure that, this is such an amazing thing about us car guys that, like you said, that you realize when you drove that faster car, you realize that this thing needs it.
Yeah.
So we car guys, we just don't understand that fine line difference between want and need.
Correct.
That want is always like a need. यार ये तो चाहिए इतना तो बनता है. Okay, great. And what kind of numbers are you pushing out on this one right now?
We're pushing around 300 Nm in terms of torque. Pushing 200, 201 in terms of dyno figures in terms of horsepower. But again, on a tune which is meant for the city or for a daily drive thing. It's running a standard 95 octane tune. We can push it a lot more by running XP100 and a lot of other mods as well. But again, we then have to compromise slightly on the reliability of it.
Has it given any issues till now?
Till now, nothing at all.
Because I mean, considering the stock output was about 100, 105 horsepower out of a 3-cylinder engine, and now you're pushing out more than double.
This is as good or even better than OEM right now. I've taken the car practically everywhere. But my first intent is every car build that I do has to be the first priority is I want to drive it daily or whenever I want. So that is the first intent of it. And this, in terms of being lowered also with the stance or whatever it is, I've taken it everywhere. Like whether it be the coilovers, they're much better than stock. And even the build overall from Speed Sport has been like OEM or better.
Fair enough. And I think, so looking at what you have in your garage, you've got an Octavia RS, you've got an X5, you've got an S6, you've got this one. And apart from the X5, I think everything else is
everything is stage 3.
Stage 3 tuned.
Yeah.
So, so I'm sure now, considering you've got cars that feel very different and they've got their individualities. So, do you have, I mean, what would be your opinion on the way, people are talking about cars in today's world and they are just comparing apples with oranges or apples with bananas? Would you like to say something on that?
Honestly, like today, it's I feel it's more about flexing these days rather than appreciating. When I got into the car scene, the community was very friendly. Like for example, they appreciated.
This was back then when SOS was the only
SOS
one that existed.
was the only one of the groups back then. You guys used to have a meet. Yeah. I'm saying even in terms of tuners, Speed Sports was being established. Autopsych was already there. Again, in terms of, I felt the community was slightly more open, more appreciative in terms of a build. Like for example, if someone was driving a Zen also, people were happy that what they've done to that Zen, they appreciated the other person's taste and helped him out in terms of that. Right now, what I feel is it's more about, okay, what are the numbers, whether the usability is there or not. Uh, I think it's more people have gone in terms of more flexing their rides uh, rather than just understanding what the guy has built or what the guy is trying to do. Like, for example, if I'll go in an X5, people will be more happier because it is an X5.
Yeah.
I'm saying that car is for a purpose, like, for example, I'm saying for a daily or for highway use or something, that is very fun. But again, the type of like the road feel or the connection or the pleasure I get while driving a Polo is not there. Like, for example, this is more mechanical. This is more of a go-kart feel.
Huh.
So which I cannot get in the other cars. Like every car has like a certain potential, a certain feel to it. I don't think there's a singular car which will be perfect in every aspect. That is why multiple builds or multiple users. Like I'll always have like once I'm done with the car, there'll always be a next build which is happening to satisfy that other need which is there.
I'm very sure now that considering that you're calling this a go-kart, so maybe you would call your Octavia as a Formula One car probably.
Not the Octavia, not it's. I'm saying it's more of a track car, more on the
Understood.
side of a track build. Yet, like drivable on a daily basis. We've taken it. Luckily, I had the chance to go on this drive called Modball. So
Oh, you went for the mod ball, okay.
yeah, so the VRS was taken there because my S6 had just broken down the day prior. And I'm saying, although being a stage 3 car, that car has done what, 58,000 kilometers now, was built back in 2018. As in it has like a full setup in terms of coilovers, turbo, intercooler, everything. And people assume once you do all those things, the cars are not reliable. The main thing is if you do it properly and you have a nice workshop or a mechanic that you're working with, those cars are as reliable as a factory car. That was a question that you asked me earlier, the reliability in terms of horsepower or something.
Yeah.
If you do it right with the proper parts and the guy who is doing it well, again, the reliability doesn't have to suffer at all.
Do you think we have guys today who actually have that mindset of maintaining the reliability of the car and tuning it at the same time?
Again, it depends. See, most of the tuners have that mindset, but again, it depends on the end users as well or the customers. Like, for example, I'm saying we can easily push out 250 horsepower from this car, but again, that reliability you have to understand if you're going quicker. That reliability will go down. Like to a certain extent, the reliability will be there. Like for example, if I track this daily, I need to maintain it accordingly. Or if I'm building a drag car, then it only needs to be driven on the straights. No, you can't daily drive it.
Correct.
Those tuners are there. They will guide you, but again, people have to tell them that reliability is priority or the use case for them. Like for example, if you tell the guy that I want a very, very quick car, but it doesn't have to be reliable. They'll do it as you're told. At the end, they'll cater to the client's need, right?
And there are so many people doing it. I mean, because like we were speaking about some of the people earlier while we were having a cup of tea along with each other, that, you know, there are people who are just building a particular car, let's say only for track usage. So they have this thing in their head that, theek hai yaar, track pe ja rahe hain, I have to go flat out there. It's not my daily driver. As it is, I'm kind of ready with this thing in my head that even if something happens, something starts rattling, I'll just park it at the mechanic's place.
Absolutely. But again, you can have both the use cases, no? So for example, as a client, I go that, okay, I want the quickest Polo in the country and I want to set a certain lap time on BIC. But
Understood.
I want it serviced as a normal Polo. I want to service it every 10,000 kilometers. But if you're pushing that car for that much, parts will automatically break. I'm saying if you look at the pinnacle of motorsports, which is Formula One, those cars you spend exorbitant amount of monies. They also have a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
So people usually don't, most of the people are not able to interrelate with those things.
Formula One, I think they're changing the engine or overhauling the engine after every
Absolutely.
track day. Every race.
Correct.
Right.
So like let's push 300 horsepower out of this, but again the engine will die down quicker because there'll be more wear and tear. That is what people don't understand. They'll be like, I want the quickest car, but I want it reliable as well. Yet they will not be willing to spend that money.
But tell me one thing, these engines that come from factory as is, like let's say this one was pushing out 100 horsepower. According to you, because I genuinely don't have an understanding of this, according to you, what is the, I mean, what percentage of the total potential of the engine does the factory give you?
I think the factory for every car, even if we look at the VRS or this car, at the end they'll try to give you a car which is very tame or which passes a lot of environmental restrictions or certain again a lot of engines are used in multiple like same engines in multiple platform in terms of cost saving. So for example, if you look at the VRS, stock it came as a 230 horsepower car.
Yeah.
The same engine is used in the TT as well, right? So again, the company cannot have the same tune on that.
It's the exact same engine and the gearbox.
It is the exact same engine. The gearbox may vary, but again, it is the exact same engine which comes in the Audi TT in India. Although the drivetrain, it's a all-wheel drive, that is a front-wheel drive, it is the exact same engine. Every single part in terms of building that car can be used in the Audi TT as well. Like even the same turbos can be used. Like
And I think that's the case with all the WAG cars. Is that true?
It's a case for all the VAC car, a lot of VAC cars and a lot of Beamers. If you look at it, a lot of Audis as well.
Okay. Is it because of the I mean, of course, it's because of the platform which is being shared, I'm assuming.
It's because of the cost savings in terms of the manufacturers. Like for example, why do you want to develop multiple engines while you can use the same engine? Like for example, if I say that Audi TT is maybe like a 50 lakh car and maybe a RS is like a 32 lakh car, having the same engine, they can't put the same tune in it. In fact, most of the stuff, like even the larger turbos that you get in the market, like the RS is running a IS38, which is an OEM Audi like VW or a VAC turbo which is there, which you can straight away bolt on. And these cars, in terms of you using bolt-on parts, are very easy to work with. Like this car also, it is using the 1.5 TSI, like the Virtus, Slavia or whatever turbo you might want to call it. We can go a step beyond, but then again that cost automatically increases as well.
I'll come back to one question that I had asked you earlier, but I'd like you to elaborate on that once again. Why an Octavia VRS with a 450 or 400 odd horsepower, and why not a BMW M3 or an M5?
Again,
Without any modifications.
Without any modifications, because at the end, like for example, even if I take a M3 or an M4, I will customize it somehow in terms of suiting my personality or need. Like for example, the wheels, even though they might be very fancy, like I would change them because I wouldn't like driving it. Again, as I said, it is an extension of my personality. Every car will have a different set of wheels or something. But again, if I look at an M3 or M4, I would still try to, even if I'm not tuning it, I would want to make it more reliable in that case. Like for example, if you look at the older gens, the S55s or the S65s, they had a crank-up issue. I would fix that. But while you're doing that, I would be tempted in terms of adding something more which makes it quicker or more reliable. It depends from platform to platform. But again, that fun of a build or that excitement in terms of tweaking your car would not be there for me. So driving a stock car, I'm saying without zero modifications, which includes wheels or audio, would not be as fun for me. Like it has to be something or the other.
Okay. Another thing that I've observed is all your cars are from Europe. And I mean, there are some fantastic cars that even Japan has to offer. I'll not get into Koreans because I would like to talk about Japan versus Europe right now, because this is like an ongoing controversy for everyone. Like even Prithvi, I spoke a couple of weeks back or 3 weeks back. At a point initially when he started his automobile journey, he was a huge fan of JDM cars when he was driving the Evo and the Subaru and stuff. But then eventually, because of he started seeing some quality issues, he shifted to European cars. Why is it? Have you ever considered buying a JDM car?
I love JDM. Honestly, given an option between the European cars or the JDM cars, in terms of the Japanese culture, also I'm majorly a fan of it.
Okay.
Like the overall culture, the people, everything. Okay. But again, the problem in India, the access to it. Second of all, there are no new tuner cars or performance cars available in the market as of brand new. And specifically us living in Delhi NCR, we can't run those cars after they've expired. Like that 10-15-year-old NGT rule is something which I hate. Like in rest of the country, if you own an old NSX as well, you can drive it around. In Delhi, it's not allowed. Like if that NGT thing wasn't there, I would have had a massive garage. Matlab, I would have loved to keep my like I had both the steels and carbon, both the Zens, and both were built in a different certain way.
No, but like, see, let if we sort of talk about this particular category, the Polo. There's the Swift also which comes. So like my question to you would be like, why a Polo and why not a Swift? I mean,
Again,
there are a lot
that
of things you can do the Swift also.
See, then again, that logic steps in. Like, for example, if I look at a build like this, you can take a 1 liter Polo, take it down to a tuner, spend 3.5 lakh rupees, get 200 or 180 horsepower out of it at least. When I look at a Swift, we don't have the Swift Sport. Right. For example, if Swift Sport was an option, I would have bought that because at least I can build that platform.
Swift Sport is a turbo, is it?
It has, I think, a turbo, but it was never launched in India, neither of the gens.
Right.
So they're not meant to for enthusiasts. Like if you look at a normal Octavia or an RS, the RS was a platform that you can build upon. The normal 1.8 TSI or even the 2 liter engines which are coming, it cannot be built. Like for example, the Polo was bought that in the future, if I require, maybe if I want to tune the car, I can do it. But with the Japanese or the Koreans, you don't have that option available. Like an option I can consider still is maybe a i20 N-line. But again, that access to parts globally or in terms of building might not be as easy.
That way I think you're right, because I have, like you talk about Akshay or you talk about a lot of these tuners that are present, some of the good tuners. Parts for any European or German car, bolt-on parts are very easily available. I mean, people are importing them left, right and center and they're available for sale, but not for any of these Japanese cars. You're right.
Correct.
And I mean, I have seen very less people, but I have come across a few people who've like for instance, Achintya, I met him a few months back, and his Swift, have you seen his?
Yeah, I've seen both
the Turbo Cat.
Yeah, both the Swifts, the turbo and the non-turbo.
He's taken taken shit to another level, I think.
Yeah, but there is a cost attached towards it, no? So again, after a point, like for example, maybe buying a Swift, spending 20 lakhs on it.
He's not driving it daily. So yeah,
Correct.
It's a very focused autocross or a track car.
For me, then it comes down. Like for example, if I buy a Swift, maybe import an engine to India, which is not easy. They're not cheap. They won't come in. Or maybe look at a Civic, maybe get a Type R engine, which again you pay a cost. And again, importing into India is not an easy option, right? So I'll be spending a X amount of money. Like a Swift, spend 20 lakhs on it, you've got 30 lakhs. I would rather buy a platform which is more buildable and I can easily build it, no? Without going through that headache, without going through that nightmare in terms of just procuring parts or building it right. And that time and the cost is something that I evaluate. Like in the 30 lakhs, I would rather take a VRS or maybe a cheaper Polo, spend a cheaper amount and get the same output out of it.
So like earlier you mentioned something about, the standard Octavia TSI versus the VRS, and VRS you can tune the living daylights out of it, but not the TSI. However, I mean, I remember Prithvi's previous car, the blue Laura.
Correct.
That was a non-VRS, I think. That was just a simple TSI.
Surprisingly, that Laura and the RS had the same engine in Europe and internationally, which came in India as well. So he was running a K04 turbo with the APR tune and everything, because that build, I think pan-India everyone followed. That was like a dream build for me at that point of time. We've all growing up seeing multiple enthusiasts like Prithvi and dreaming one day that we'll do something similar.
I have not come across multiple people like Prithvi. I think the way this guy plays around with cars.
Yeah. I think a lot of people.
He literally treats his cars as if जैसे वो बच्चे नहीं खेलते टॉय के साथ कि मम्मी ये चेंज कर दो, ऐसे चेंज कर दो, ये कर दो. He literally, I think he ends up treating his cars like that in a good way.
Yeah. Fortunately, I've come across a lot of people which I'm friends with, which take it to the next level altogether. The good part with me is that most of the tuners became friends, whether it be Arush, whether it be Phil, whether it be Akshay. I'm seeing luckily I've seen mad builds like for example Harman, I'm sure you know about. So Harman
is Akshay's partner.
Upshift Auto basically.
Yes,
Harman owns that.
Correct.
So Harman back in the day or even today also spec best to the cars. Like
Okay.
from a supercharged Mustang to maybe a 1.8 TSI,
I didn't know
which
Herman
had
has a history with tuning cars. I
yeah,
thought,
yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
okay.
Him, or if you look at people like Phil,
Uh-huh.
which will maybe take an E30
Yeah.
and build a one of one in the world sort of a thing with a like a JDM engine. But again, a lot of these people are not very active on social media. But throughout years, I'm saying there have been crazy builds in Delhi NCR as well.